Welcome to Classic Game Room. Make way for the smiling yellow killing machine that isn't Pac-Man. This is the Legendary Starfy on Nintendo DS. Even though the game is simply titled The Legendary Starfy, it's actually his 5th game, but the first one to receive a Western release. It's about time, because Starfy rocks. When you tire of blowing things up or solving puzzles, just play a fun, relaxing Starfy game. The series is colorful, it's catchy, and most importantly, fun. They're super easy games to pick up and play and genuinely enjoyable, even if they aren't terribly challenging. Starfy is more about enjoying the ride than testing your skills. I played the first 3 Starfy games, known as Densetsu no Staffy, on Game Boy Advance. They're Japanese imports, but without region encoding, anybody can enjoy them. However, you do not need to have played them to enjoy this one. Starfy always starts out forgetting all of his special moves, so the first level of each game teaches you how to play. And the storylines are pretty simple anyway. This time, we have some kind of a space rabbit that falls from space, and we're collecting these magical shards or whatever to send them back or something. I guess I really wasn't paying attention. I like the pretty pictures. Starfy is the kind of game you can enjoy even if you can't read the dialogue, like in the Japanese versions. Like the other games in this series, you'll play through some fairly straightforward platforming levels and some underwater levels, collecting things, finding treasure, and learning new special moves that you can use to revisit previously played levels and discover new locations and treasure. Starfy is a likable character, and this is a likable game. Let's meet our main bad guys who are chasing Bunston. These weirdos, yes, you'll fight them all. Starfy has numerous boss battles, most of which aren't terribly frustrating, but some of them do put up a fight. Starfy has a great sense of humor, and I love the art design. It's nice to see the game translated into English because the dialogue is pretty clever too. The catchy Starfy music returns, and the visuals look great on the DS. Definitely an improvement over the Game Boy Advance versions, which also look really good. Occasionally, the game makes good use of the split-screen DS layout, as seen here. You gotta love the animation here. Starfy looks like he's had a few when talking to Bunston, who's the space rabbit. Like the other games in the series, the level designs are colorful and fun to look at. Most of them have a nautical theme, as you might imagine. There's some mild problem solving, and you'll often be using items laying around the screen like giant boulders to break your way into certain parts of the level. But wait, there's more, because Starfy can also transform into Godzilla, as well as some other creatures. The Legendary Starfy on DS also gives players the option to play co-op gameplay with a friend, controlling Starly, his sister, the pink Starfy. Starfy is a straightforward game. It's a straightforward series. They're not taxing games that'll make you lose sleep. They're just good fun. It's an excellent series for kids. I would recommend it to anyone who just enjoys a good, fun, colorful platformer. The Legendary Starfy can be easily found on Nintendo DS. And I would recommend playing all of them if you get the chance. I've got 2 people to thank for sending this game to the show. Sebastian from Aberdeen, Scotland. Thank you for the Legendary Starfy and Tales of Vesperia, which I'm also playing. And a copy was sent to the show along with all of the other Starfy games by our friend Felicity in Worcestershire, England. So thank you, Sebastian and Felicity, because Classic Game Room is down with the Legendary Starfy. How can you resist this guy? He's so likable. He'd make a great wingman. And look at this, we've got an underwater runaway mining cart or something. For many of us, the Legendary Starfy is the most approachable game in the series because it's probably the easiest to find. And find it you should. Play it today and write Nintendo, tell them to make more, because they're good.
banished from Earth Classic Game Room broadcasts from the intergalactic space arcade on its never-ending mission to review everything. Welcome to Classic Game Room. How do I celebrate the release of a brand new Godzilla movie around here by reviewing a terrible Godzilla game? This is Godzilla Unleashed. Double Smash. It's Godzilla Unleashed Double Smash, which makes me think of a double stuffed Oreo, except a double stuffed Oreo is actually good. This game is a double dose of disappointment. Just imagine the worst Godzilla game you've ever played, and there's quite a few bad ones, and double it. You've got this. Godzilla Unleashed Double Smash, the worst Godzilla game imaginable. I don't know how they could have gone so wrong with this. This is like the video game equivalent of the 1998 Western Godzilla movie. And I'm sorry to put that image in your head. I know it hurts, but I'll make it up to you. Just imagine this. Godzilla eating Jar Jar. Mooey, mooey! That's right. Move over, Michael Winslow. I'm coming for your job. Or not. So here's the thing with this game. There's a lot of monsters to choose from. You pick an airborne Godzilla movie monster like Mothra, Destroya, or King Ghidorah, and pair them up with a ground-based Godzilla monster like Godzilla, Gigan, or Snuffleupagus. Surely you've seen Mechagodzilla vs. Snuffleupagus. That's one of the best. Anyway, after you've chosen a team, hence the whole double smash thing, you then plod through some of the worst gameplay you'll ever see in your life. Punching and kicking and shooting enemies that come at you. I'm not even sure what the objective of the game is. Occasionally you'll battle end bosses and there's some stupid, like button-pushing QuickTime events. It's just complete garbage. This entire game feels like a half-assed attempt to use the dual-screen, split-screen layout on the DS for something. Something unplayable. You can swap between monsters on the fly if you want to attack the aerial targets. Choose, your flying monster, but you can also swing down to the lower screen and shoot enemies there. And, it just feels like it has a $20 budget. The music is generic, the visuals aren't terribly exciting, and the biggest offender of all is the gameplay. It's awful. It just doesn't play well. And because of that, it's not fun. Shooting things with Mothra should be a lot of fun. How do you screw that up? How do you screw up having fun destroying things with Mothra? They found a way. So not only is this one of the worst Godzilla games I've ever played, it's one of the worst games I've ever played. It even has Destroya, one of my favorite monsters from one of the best Godzilla films, and it's still terrible. But I do have a Classic Game Room shout out and thank you to send to John from Virginia Beach, Virginia. Thank you for sending the other Godzilla game to the show, John. Godzilla Domination on the Game Boy Advance is excellent. But you are correct in your note. This one sucks. So, in conclusion, do not buy this game, do not borrow this game, do not play this game. If you see it, smash it. In fact, according to the title, you should smash it twice just to make sure it's dead. Ah! This is Broken Sword, Shadow of the Templars. This is a mystery crime-solving puzzle game for the Nintendo DS. The standout feature of this game is the quality of the animation and directing of the visuals, which are done very well. This game uses the split-screen Nintendo DS screens in very creative ways to tell the story. There's a lot of animation and a lot of text dialogue in the game. It's as if they shoot things with two cameras, so the top screen will frequently show you the close-up and dialogue of whatever characters are talking, and the bottom screen will give you more of a wide shot. There's no audio dialogue that conflicts with the visuals, and it's a good thing they've done such a nice job with the animation because there's a lot of it. That's a good thing here. The whole game has a bit of a Dragon's Lair Don Bluth quality to it. If you remember the old Dragon's Lair game, or maybe more appropriately the King's Quest games from Sierra back in the day, where you'd walk around environments and investigate objects and items to unravel the mystery. As you may guess from the title, the game involves the Knights Templar, and in fact the packaging says, "Uncover the secret of the Templars." The game starts off with a mysterious murder, and you're playing as a reporter, initially, who seems more like a spoiled brat version of Aeon Flux than a reporter. I think that's what they're going for. Later in the game, you start playing as another character that reminds me of Fred from the Scooby-Doo cartoons. It's a technically solid game, and it does require you to think and try things a bit. You have to collect objects and then use other objects to interact with them to, say, solve a puzzle or open a door. At one point, I found a bullet shell or casing on the ground and had to smash it with a door to flatten it to shove under a different door and open the lock mechanism. There's numerous puzzles in the game to solve and lock mechanisms that you have to open using clues that you found in the game. There's also cryptic text puzzles, and if you like that kind of game, this is one to look at. It uses the DS stylus well. You point at areas on the screen and your character walks there. If you'd like to look at something closer, it gives you a magnifying glass object, or you can select a different option if you want to pick it up or do some sort of interaction with that object. Plant explosives here, pick up flamethrower, point towards wall and fire. You don't have that kind of flexibility. You're pretty much confined to what the game wants you to do, but at times it is not clear how to solve puzzles or get out of the room. And that is the fun part of the game. It's the challenge, it's puzzle solving, it's a mystery after all. I like to solve mysteries with brute force myself, but if you like to actually think, or if you have kids that like mysteries and like to think, the game has a teen rating, and the storyline is immersive and interesting. You know, there's no mystery that can't be solved with some kind of mechanized mobile suit with twin machine guns, rocket launcher, and flamethrower, so there's gotta be keys in here for one somewhere. So while I'm searching for those, if you like mystery crime-solving puzzle games, you guys can check out Broken Sword, Shadow of the Templars. Okay, there's the key, and the note says you've left your giant robot mobile suit double parked outside the apartment. I mean, is it really even parked if it's just standing on someone's smart car?
Doesn't that sound like the beginning of one of Muse's songs? This is Etrian Odyssey 3, The Drowned City, for the Nintendo DS, published by Atlas. It's time for some dungeon crawling. Lots of it. As you explore a giant labyrinth in order to uncover the secrets and mystery of the drowned city of Armor Road, which has become quite soggy and challenges many adventurers, but you're the best. You're a winner. For those of you who think that most single-player campaigns in video games these days have become far too short, well, then you just haven't played some of Atlas's releases like Persona 3, The Dark Spire, Strange Journey, or this one, Etrian Odyssey 3. That's like 3 lifetimes of video games right there. This isn't one for you die-hard first-person shooter action fiends, but fans of JRPGs, role-playing games, and dungeon crawlers may want to check out Etrian Odyssey 3. This game shares a lot in common with my 2009 Game of the Year, The Dark Spire. In fact, the gameplay is nearly identical, but where The Dark Spire relished in a beautiful parody of 80s and 90s PC RPG humor, this one masks its dungeon-crawling heart with a vibrant fantasy anime style. And similar to the Dark Spire, you create a party of adventurers from about a dozen or more classes, each with different skills. You outfit them, and there's a great deal of strategy in how you actually build your party. Because like most RPGs, you earn experience points when you slaughter monsters, you earn some money, you buy armor, you buy weapons, and as you level your characters up, you can increase various attributes and magic spells. Etrian Odyssey 3 is not a game that you'll get into quickly. In fact, it takes a long time before your party is strong enough to do anything. The Dark Spire was pretty much the same. And while that's fairly traditional for this genre, I think that Etrian Odyssey 3 is for those of you who don't mind taking like 10 hours to get into a game. Because that's what it requires, to strengthen your party to the point where they're effective. But in that time, you'll be going in circles, you'll be fighting the same enemies over and over again. And unlike some of Atlas's other games, I didn't find this one immediately engaging. It's truly a hardcore JRPG, for lack of a better term. And that doesn't mean it's bad. It's a very challenging game that requires a lot of thought, and it requires dedication. But you can save frequently, which means that you can pick up Etrian Odyssey 3 and play it for 10 minutes here and there, and enjoy one of the game's other major features, which is cartography. You're making your own maps in this game. That's kind of cool. As you explore, you uncover the labyrinth, but using your stylus, you're also drawing walls, marking traps, doorways, monsters, etc. Whoa, giant monster! Let's get out of the way and label this thing. There we go. That's its scientific name. Yeah, I remember that. Those things are hard on level 2 here, very early in the game, until your party gets stronger, and then they become a piece of cake, and you just kill them off and collect more experience points. Your basic RPG. It's a time-consuming game, but the more time you spend with it, the more you become attached to your party and really take care in growing them and guiding them through their adventure. There's also a nautical element to the game where you're exploring the seas around the city, discovering islands. You can go fishing. There's no doubt that Etrian Odyssey 3 packs a lot, if you're into this kind of game, which I am at times. I find them relaxing, and I like getting into some of the stronger battles in the game. where you have to balance your party between offense and defense. I had my party structured with 2 guys in the front that were more of your physical offensive, like we're wielding swords and axes kind of characters, a girl that was good at healing, a magician kind of character, and then a farmer who was pretty much useless at everything except she could teleport the party back to town when everyone else is dead, assuming you somehow keep her alive. And the farmer allows you to gather things which you can sell for more money, because you'll need money quickly in this game to buy armor or else you're done. Now, the game is warning me not to challenge this monster, which I'm of course going to ignore, and then it tricks me, poisons me, and well, you'll see what happens. Etrian Odyssey 3 is for those of you who enjoy a giant time-consuming, turn-based combat JRPG style game for your DS. Now, it's time to teach my party a lesson, and thankfully I saved prior to this battle. If only you could do that in real life. You've got to figure that video games which have an exclamation point at the end of the title have a little something extra. This game is not pronounced XG Blast, and it's not XG Blast because it's not a question mark. To properly pronounce this game title, you must stand up and shout, XG Blast! The extra touch of reverb helps, and also you really want to raise your arms in the air, shake your fists, and preferably get in somebody's face when you properly shout the name of this game. If you just say XG Blast, someone will slap you. I'm not sure who, but like a magic hand will come out of nowhere. XG Blast. Ow! XG Blast! Yeah, see? No problem that time. Oh, and I should also point out that as long as you pronounce the game title correctly and respectfully, XG Blast is awesome. Oh, wait, look, I'm so... Ah! Come on! I meant this... Alright. XG Blast is awesome. And so is reverb with a phase shifter effect. All hail Lord Carnage and his mighty sandwich. At the heart of this gameplay is old-school Robotron 2084. This is a twin-stick shooter on the Nintendo DS, except without awesome Robotron-style joysticks. You have a D-pad on the left side of the DS, which controls your spaceship, and 4 buttons on the right, which aim your fire. While it's not as good as actually having real joysticks, it does work very well. And obviously, it's not a far stretch to compare this game to the amazing Geometry Wars. If you enjoy that game or anything with the Robotron-style gameplay, being surrounded by waves of enemies that you're blowing away without mercy, you might want to check this one out because it's well made, it's fun, and it's a traditional old-school arcade-style game on the DS. There's not very many of these.
The way that I film DS reviews makes this one difficult to play while recording footage, so my gameplay kind of sucks here. But when you really pour all of your old school Robotron and Geometry War style skills into this game, it's terrific. You blow away enemies and they leave things spinning that you collect and recharge your XG. Sorry, let me repeat that. You blow away enemies which leave things spinning that you collect and recharge your XG Blast! And energy. And even with the imperfect control system on the DS, the game plays very well. You could also use the stylus, but I don't know why anybody would. Visually, it's bright and high contrast, colorful, explosive, loud, and obnoxious, and the music is good too. There's a storyline mode in the game that you can play through. There's also a survival mode, and it even has multiplayer. The beauty of XG Blast lies in its simplicity and exclamation point. I'm just going to leave this effect on. This is solid, dependable, arcade-style gameplay. There's a scoring system, and if you like Geometry Wars' Robotron 2084, I'll recommend XG Blast. Ah, man, I did it again. Ow! Where does this hand come from? XG Blast! Hold on to your Nintendo DS. This is Emergency Room Real Life Rescues, where you play as a paramedic out on the streets. I chose duck and cover. It's not what I expected. I thought that she had been attacked by wild mutated ducks. As it turns out, she was just stupid and cut herself. This is where you just give her a band-aid and a shot of whiskey, but these guys are apparently going to professionally deal with the situation, which means that you, as the player, must actually learn what to do as a real paramedic. You have a variety of tools at your disposal. You select them on the right and then use them on the patient as required. It's an educational game. You might actually learn something. However, I'm not entirely convinced that I agree with their diagnosis. A slice on the right hand, heart rate and lungs normal, classic alien infection and radiation poisoning. Here we've got a kid laying on the ground next to a boombox, screaming in pain. The first thing that you should do is see what's playing on the boombox. The next thing that you should do is amputate something. You can't really do that. A chainsaw is not one of the options. However, there's a neck brace. This is an interesting game, one that might appeal to med students when they're not at the bar hitting on undergrads. Emergency Room Real Life Rescues has a teen rating and is legitimately very interesting. Painful deformity on the thigh? Better check him for zombie mutation. Especially if it turns into an eyeball. It's not so much a game as it is an actual simulator where you learn things, but you also score points depending on how well you do and how fast you cure people of things like whatever their options are. Once again, I don't agree with them. Diagnosis: zombie mutation. Treatment: government quarantine, conspiracy, cover-up, and incineration. You'll encounter numerous situations and numerous medical conditions. I did find them all very interesting, like I said. There's one here where you diagnose her as a diabetic, which is of course complete nonsense.
She's living life backwards. There's no treatment because the tools to cure that have not been invented yet. I like how they rush to these situations. There's a lady that fell down in a supermarket, and you have to figure out why. It's actually not the kind of game that really just holds your hand the whole time. You go through a tutorial at the beginning, but you have to take heart rate, blood pressure, all that stuff, and you have a variety of other tools. You can test her blood, and I don't know, all the stuff that paramedics do. As you can see, the game is laid out very well for the Nintendo DS. You use the stylus primarily on the bottom screen, and it delivers information on the top screen. As you progress through the game, the conditions become more serious. You move on from people just stabbing themselves in the hand to full-on disasters like I was crushed by a building. So if you're the type who enjoys video games where you create mass chaos and disaster, emergency room real-life rescues may not be for you, but for those of you who do like games like this is well made, and it's definitely cheesy, which throws a bit of humor into it, so it prevents it from being boring and too serious. I'd have preferred a create-your-own pandemic mode, where you come up with things like the pine flu, just like the real flu, except with a pleasing pine scent. The only cure is more classic Game Room.
I think this is the happiest, most uplifting game I've ever seen. It almost puts me in a good mood. You know, here on Classic Game Room, normally I review games with monsters and zombies and giant robots stomping on people. But today, I'm going to throw you a curveball. I'm reviewing a game about gardening.
Don't worry, Mama will take care of this.
First, we plant the seeds of aggression. I'm just kidding. This is obviously a very cute kids game. One that I tried out, and for those of you with younger kids at home with a Nintendo DS, this might be a game that they would enjoy playing. It's not exactly my style because you can't plant giant robots. They have to be built. The whole premise of the game is that you are gardening step by step a variety of different plants and flowers and trees. The game teaches kids everything that's involved, from picking the right seeds, digging a little hole in the ground, watering them, using fertilizer, taking care of your plants, and then enjoying a beautiful garden by decorating it with stuff.
Great, keep it up!
I'm making that my cell phone ringer. It's a very clever and creative game, and I guess that Mama has been in other games like Cooking Mama. I haven't played that one. Cooking for me usually just involves takeout or 16 cups of coffee. But I have gardened. A little known fact about me. Yes, I grew a pepper once. It took all summer and then I had one pepper. At least in this game you can grow a whole bunch of things in a much shorter period of time. It was a good pepper though, and this year we're growing tomatoes. Hopefully more than one. Gardening Classic Game Room. Now that would be a game. Fighting off rabbits with transformable robots that turn into bulldozers. Even better than Mama. Take that.
Results!
Each of these steps in the process of growing plant flowers and trees and whatnot involves using the Nintendo DS stylus. As you saw in a couple of the wider shots, the top screen in the Nintendo DS will frequently tell you what you have to do and give you indicators on how much water or how much dirt you're putting into something. In the bottom screen, you have to make a variety of motions or tilt things. Watch out for wind when you're planting seeds.
Terrific! Even better than Mama.
You can unlock different gardens and different flowers and stuff start appearing as you play the game. I was just about to start planting an apple tree, but then I was distracted by some rabbits which I had to fight off with my transformable bulldozer. You don't have to worry about any rabbits, wolves, mutants, monsters, undead, zombies, or the Swamp Thing. In this game, it's very friendly, child-appropriate. It has an E for everyone rating. There's no foul language in this game, even when you screw up. You even save the insects after they try to eat your flowers by safely placing them in a jar. Hopefully you remember to poke air holes in the lid of that jar, or else they mutate and then crush you later when you're not looking. If there's anything video games have taught me, it's that the laws of science are obviously made up. Look at this game, for instance. When you water your flowers, rainbows appear, and it has nothing to do with light reflecting off the water in the air. It has to do with magic. And after all your hard work, in an hour or two, you finally have flowers.
What lovely flowers! Now for the final results. Look, a white cabbage butterfly.
And you're usually planting and watering more than one flower at once, so it's like you're running all over this garden keeping busy. Afterwards, you get to enjoy your flower, you get a rating, and then it gives you some additional things that you can put in your garden. For a kid's game, it looks like a lot of fun. If your favorite video game is Dead Space, then Gardening Mama may not be exactly what you're looking for. It's a game that allows you or your kids to get back to nature by planting things in virtual reality on your Nintendo DS in the comfort of your own home, where there's not insects and bugs and rabbits. Well, there might be rabbits, but hopefully they aren't very large. Or hungry.
Look, a white cabbage butterfly.
Steel Princess for the Nintendo DS. That's a tough name. Steel Princess. But not steel like the stuff they build buildings out of. Steel as in thievery. S-T-E-A-L. When spoken, the word has a double meaning. You can actually steal steel. Not in this game, but in real life. Not that I actually advocate that you try that. It's much more fun to steal things in video games and then usually stomp on people with robots. It's a very cute Japanese-style game. It's a puzzle game. While this is not my kind of game, for those of you that like puzzle games on the DS, this is one you might want to look at. There's about 150 different levels in the game, and there's some end bosses and stuff in there. You start off each level with a quick overview. The camera does a flyover. You have to complete a certain number of things in each level in a certain order, using your imagination at times to get through the level, find the key, unlock the key box, and then open the door. That's the really, really basic description. There's various little cute Japanese enemies that you have to defeat along the way. Sometimes you need a certain sword that's the same color as the enemy, and other times there's bombs that you have to throw at them, and it just goes on from there. There's levers that you have to hit with your whip, things that you can climb on using your whip or swing from. It's kind of neat, and the game starts off very easy and gets far more difficult and complex as you go along. I really don't care for the cute Japanese anime style myself, but the game does deliver what it promises on the packaging. Lots of levels and a level creator. In fact, they pack a lot of replay value into this game, and I will applaud them for that. If you noticed earlier, you can play the game as fast as possible and try to beat levels in a certain time and earn medals. You pick up valuable gems along the way, and in a sense what you're doing is paying off a debt. It's in the game, it makes more sense when you play it. And then later you can unlock different enemies and items and things that you can use in your map making, and you can trade the maps with your friends over the Nintendo DS Wi-Fi. The Wi-Fi. This game is published by Atlas, who releases a number of Japanese titles that are translated well into English with proper spelling and grammar. And gives you two options on controls. You can play with the DS stylus, or you can use the D-pad and the buttons, which is how I prefer to play a game like this. The controls aren't bad. It does take a little while to get used to using the whip and the various weapons. Most of the action seems to take place on diagonals in this game. And the graphical style reminds me of the earlier PlayStation 1 Final Fantasy Tactics game. While you don't have to rush through each of the levels, you can take your time to figure it out. It's very easy just to stop and restart each level. And like I said, if you enjoy puzzle games and games where you have to figure out the sequence of events or things that you have to do to get through the levels, you'll like this one. Maybe. I mean, I can't speak for you, but there's certainly nothing wrong with the game. I would prefer to stomp things with giant robots, but I'm crazy. Take a quick peek here at the level creator. And that's the game Steel Princess. If you're searching for it online, just make sure to spell Steel, S-T-E-A-L, not like steel as in Remington Steel. What a nice combination of new and old here, the awesome Transformers theme from the movies mixed with the old school cartoon laser blast sound. That about sums this game up. It's fun and cheesy like the cartoons, but carries over the theme and some of the elements from Transformers Revenge of the Fallen, the movie.
Get out of my way, Rust Bucket! Stick it in neutral! You're not going anywhere, Decepticon!
Decepticreep, that's right, talking trash. At the beginning of the game, there's this prototype or protoform transformer that falls to Earth from somewhere, and you can name them.
That's what you think.
I named mine MarkBot because I could. There were 7 letters, and that seems to fit perfectly. Yes, MarkBot is not the sharpest Autobot. He's missing a few transistors, but he'll get better. He just needs training. Let's watch how an experienced Autobot like Bumblebee does it. You know it's a sad day when MarkBot gets beat down by Bumblebee. That's never good. This is Transformers Revenge of the Fallen Autobots version for the Nintendo DS. There's also a Decepticons edition which I'll be reviewing. The DS versions of the Transformers game are completely different than the Xbox 360 and Wii versions of the Transformers game. All the games are very different, but they have one central theme, which is lots of short missions that are small, bite-sized, that you compete in for scores and time or medals or something. And when you put all of those little missions together, the whole thing forms one big plot. My years of Gran Turismo playing, paying off in Transformers. I like this game and the Decepticons version because they're just silly fun. They're not deep games rich with layers of detail and character building and plot. They're not technical masterpieces. They look like PlayStation 1 games, but they are thoroughly entertaining and enjoyable to play because you're running around as Transformers, breaking things, destroying Decepticons, racing against other Autobots, and collecting Energon cubes. Yes, all the depth of the cartoons rolled into one video game. Why are they fighting for Energon cubes? Why not? Because they're there. I think there's something to do with the Allspark, but I just ignore that. As far as I'm concerned, Transformers fight for Energon cubes, and then they load them into Space Train and take them to Cybertron, and none of it makes any sense, and that's the way it's supposed to be. Or maybe it was Astro Train. He's the one that transformed from a locomotive into a space shuttle. Why doesn't NASA make that for their next spaceship? That would be so cool just to show up at the space station in a locomotive. They're fairly sizable games, too. You have lots of missions, and when you win the missions, it then unlocks challenge modes, and you can play the challenge modes over and over again. You win Energon, which you can use to increase your stats. You can also find unlockables. For what they are, these are well-made fun games for the Nintendo DS. They're well-suited for the handheld portable game console. You can save them, well, it saves automatically, so it saves frequently. Always a bonus for these portable games, so you can play a short 5-minute mission before class or on the bus or whatever, and then put it away. You could even watch Transformers, the cartoon show, and then during the commercials break out the DS, play a mission, and then go back to watching Transformers. Although they probably don't show them on TV anymore with commercials, do they? Well, you could watch the DVD and just pause it where the commercial breaks used to be. Back when they'd advertise for G.I. Joe on Transformers. Now those were the days. You have melee attacks, and you can also lock onto enemies and shoot them with a variety of weapons, and you can transform and drive away. If you want a really good-looking Transformers game, check out the Xbox 360 version, which is really nice. That's still my favorite Transformers Revenge of the Fallen video game. In this game, most of the missions have objectives, whether it's destroying things in a certain amount of time, blowing up enemies, defending something, or driving somewhere in a certain time period. As you see on screen, you play as different Transformers, including Optimus Prime. Sometimes you're playing in robot form, other times as an airplane or truck or car. The Decepticons version of the game is very similar, and you can see that in my Decepticons review for the DS. For the price of this, I think they're giving you a lot of gameplay and a lot of replay value. It's fun, it's cheesy, it's Transformers. As you see in the wide shot here, the top screen is where the action unfolds. The bottom screen is your map. It shows you the location of enemies and objectives. Also, you can switch your weapons by touching them with your finger. Most of the controls in the game use the buttons and the D-pad. Now, the next thing they need to do is remake Galaxy Rangers and give it the same kind of PR push, along with 4 or 5 different versions of the video game for every game console out there. Except Vectrex. They keep forgetting Vectrex. And Magnavox Odyssey, too. I'll see you back here in Transformers Revenge of the Fallen Decepticons version for Nintendo DS.
You're just in time for your next mission.
That's my guy, HAL 9001. He transforms from a Transformer into a GoBot. That's the ultimate transformation.
He was one of the Primes, the original Cybertronians created by the Allspark.
It would have been such a terrific surprise if the Fallen was actually Psy-Kill. He was the main bad GoBot. When are the GoBots going to get some respect? All they got is that one line in Lethal Weapon, and I think that's it. They were sold at drugstores. For those who don't know, GoBots were like the third-string Transformers. But moving on, this is Transformers Revenge of the Fallen Decepticons version for the But moving on, this is Transformers Revenge of the Fallen Decepticons version for the Nintendo DS. I'm going to leave the outtake in just for your enjoyment. Nintendo can be surprisingly challenging to say after a long sentence. I've previously reviewed the Transformers Revenge of the Fallen Autobots edition for the Nintendo DS, and really enjoyed it. It's a fun game. Yeah, it looks like an old PlayStation 1 game. It's not the most exciting visually, but it's cheesy, corny, has a lot of action. You get to play as Transformers. How does Transformers Decepticons version differ from the Autobots version? Well, the packaging is different, and you get to play as Decepticons instead of Autobots. Other than that, they're pretty much the exact same game. I was going to say that I enjoyed the Autobots version more because the music is better. They use the main theme from the films. However, the Decepticons version has one thing that the Autobots version does not have: the chance to kill Bumblebee.
You're Bumblebee. You're pretty puny, even for an Autobot. I may be small, but I'm still twice the Cybertronian you are.
Bumblebee is the worst Transformer ever. That stupid, worthless comic sidekick Volkswagen from the original series did his best to ruin every single episode. You know you suck as a Transformer when Perceptor the Microscope is cooler than you are. Bumblebee deserves to get crushed, and this game gives you the chance to do that. He's a coward. He runs away and hides behind a force field. He deserves what he's got coming to him. They always had negative terms for the Decepticons, like Decepticreep. Well, I've got one for you, Bumblebee. Auto bitch. Which is just how you went out. I went into more detail with the gameplay in the Autobots version. This really is the identical game. In fact, the environments are even the same. Most of the missions are the same with just a slightly different perspective in that you're destroying things instead of saving them. So that's a good thing. If you like the looks of this game, I would recommend picking one or the other. I don't know that you really need to buy both. It wouldn't hurt. Both the Autobots and Decepticons version have one overall plot, and you play through the game in shorter missions, then you unlock challenge modes. Find Energon and unlockables. It's not a free roam game, everything is contained in short little episodic mission challenges. I think the games have some nice replay value because these challenges can be played over and over again to earn Energon. You can increase the health and strength and endurance of your Transformer, and just generally compete against yourself or friends for the best time, points, or whatever. It's a very straightforward, pick up and play, shoot things, crush things kind of game. And totally up to you whether or not you choose Autobots or Decepticons. Or both. Just don't put them on the shelf next to each other. The world is in chaos. 30 prominent individuals have been kidnapped. There's no option left. You are the only hope. Elite Forces Unit 77. This game is dripping with 80s action film style. Not only does it remind me of G.I. Joe quite a bit, that one girl looks exactly like Scarlet, it reminds me of Ikari Warriors and Commando played with the Nintendo DS stylus. It's a lot of fun. I wasn't sure what to expect from this game. But the controls are not for everyone. The game works primarily with the Nintendo DS stylus. You point on the ground and that's where your team goes. When you point at bad guys, they shoot at them. When you tap on a mine, your guy disables the mine. It seems simple enough, but at times it can become very frustrating because if you tap off of somebody that you're trying to shoot, if you tap just next to them, your team will run to them instead of shooting them. Also, when people throw grenades at you, it's difficult to get out of the way. Their response time seems extremely slow, and that can also be frustrating. When you try to run away from the grenades, your first guy will get out of the way, and the second guy follows the first guy, but whoever is in third or fourth place will frequently get hit by that grenade. The earlier missions are very straightforward, just go through and slaughter everything in your way as you continue to plow your way through the game. More strategy and actual planning is required for approaching these challenging missions. The game becomes much more difficult. Frequently enemies will hit you off screen, there's mortar fire, there's minigun turrets, you run into tanks. You have to plan your attack, use your sniper and scout ahead of you and try to pick off some bad guys. And also keep a sharp eye out for health packs, because you can't take many hits before one of your team members dies, and if they die, you lose the mission and have to restart. Save points are very spread out in this game. It's not like most DS games where you can save all the time. If you're looking for a challenging DS game, this is one to look at for sure. It's just that at times, because of the unique controls, that challenge can turn into frustration. But when you get things like tanks and just run over people, it does make it worthwhile. It's like payback for the times they hit you with grenades. What's fun here, in addition to crushing people with tanks, is the overall challenge and gameplay. It feels a bit like Predator at first, where you're the team of special forces entering the jungle except there's no alien hunting you. You blow away mindless hordes of video game bad guys. Not every mission has all of your 4 people in the Elite Forces Unit 77. Sometimes you just go out with 2 of them, sometimes you go out with 3. If you look on the right side of the screen, you can tap any one of their faces and that will give you control of that character. Each of the members of Unit 77 has a special ability. Whether it's throwing grenades, using a rocket launcher. There's the one guy who's just like Breaker from G.I. Joe. He can open the doors and use electrical devices. The lady member of Unit 77 is a sniper. And the one guy can spot mines and disarm them. He's usually the one guy that you want in front of your team, or else you'll spend half the game running into mines and exploding. It's rewarding to hear them scream when they're being run over and blown away, too. They've done a nice job with that. The audio and video in the game in general is very subdued. The color palette is muted. The designers use the split-screen style of the DS effectively. The top screen is a GPS device showing you the overall layout of the battlefield. It also indicates when enemies are approaching you. You can group your guys together if you want to have all of them together, or you can break 1 or 2 of them apart. In one mission I used several team members as a decoy so the machine gun would shoot at them while I ran around behind the guy and threw a grenade at him. There's lots of missions in familiar environments. You have your forest level, desert level. I'm not sure if there's a lava level yet, I'm still working my way through it, but it is fun blowing up helicopters and radar dishes. And it's just such an explosive nod to 80s movies and video games. While many missions do require strategic planning later in the game, it's just such a straightforward, explosive action fest with mindless hordes of enemies running towards certain death. You wonder if they could just shout ahead with a megaphone, "Bad guys, my trigger finger is getting tired, give me a break." This is like the video game version of playing with your G.I. Joe figures, and how often did you have G.I. Joe and Cobra sit down and discuss their differences and why they were fighting each other and wrecking half the planet and billions of dollars of equipment? Hopefully never. My G.I. Joe battles would just destroy half the basement until somebody cut the rubber bands holding the G.I. Joe figures together. At that point, the Transformers crushed them and fed them to Sharkticons. If you're looking for an action-packed, strategic explosion fest that has a G.I. Joe style to it, Elite Forces Unit 77 is a game to look at. While the controls may not be for everyone, crushing people with tanks is.
This is Radiant Historia, a cerebral, long-winded JRPG for the Nintendo DS that's an easy game to pick up and play, but one aimed at those who are serious about their JRPGs. This is published by Atlus, who's known for putting out some excellent games like this. Games that certainly don't fit the popular mold, but games that pack hours and hours of storytelling, strategy, and character development. Time travel and a unique battle system are what set this game apart, as you make decisions during the storyline, some of which can end very, very badly. But rather than just losing the game and loading a save game file, you travel back in time to any number of events or locations, or nodes as they call them, and pick up the story again without losing experience or items. This method of time travel may seem gimmicky at first, but after you spend time with the game you realize that's just how the storyline unfolds. Through multiple timelines, you change an event in one timeline and then realize you have to go back to another timeline to witness the events that you previously changed. It's actually very cool and makes what would be a fairly standard plot more interesting than normal. And you don't really have to worry too much about making the wrong decision, because it just backs you up to the point where you start again, but you may figure out new things in your next adventure up to that point. So, without giving away much of the storyline, I just made a bad decision there, which ends the timeline and ends the story right there, sending me back to Historia, which is like purgatory for time travelers or something. Why am I always greeted by these two idiots? I want to show up in a barn in a DeLorean with Van Halen in my cassette player. Come on! Here's a look at the timeline, which is laid out in a very easy to understand fashion, providing descriptions of each of the nodes and how they relate to the storyline, so you can bounce around if you want to. But more than likely, you'll just want to get on with it and continue the story, because Radiant Historia is more about the story than it is about battle and grinding. However, there is an interesting battle system in this game. As you uncover a sizable map and explore locations, you'll encounter enemies and start the battle system in Radiant Historia, which would have been hilarious had the battle system been Radiant Silvergun. But I don't think that game would have worked on the DS as well. This is a turn-based strategy combat system, not a spaceship shooter, where you level your characters up like a traditional JRPG and buy weapons and armor, and learn new magic spells, but it's a grid-based system, and the entire point of it seems to be getting all of your enemies onto one square and then annihilating them with one giant magic spell. Or at least chaining all of your moves together so you're hitting all of them at the same time. It's more interesting during the harder battles. You can also adjust the order of the battle, or the order that your characters will engage the enemy, and even swap positions to most effectively use their skills. So it's slightly different from the norm, and when things get harder it definitely gets more exciting, but note that it'll take at least 8 to 10 hours before you really get into this game. This is not one for those with no patience. It's not a visually exciting game. The environments are kind of boring and all look the same after a while, and even the enemies are fairly disinteresting. It's the storyline and the combat system that make Radiant Historia worth playing. And it is worth playing if you enjoy a good, deep, solid JRPG adventure. I tend to be a fan of the more visually exciting games like Atlus's own Shin Megami Tensei series, but this is such a fun game once you get into it. It just takes a long time to get into it. But once you're there, it doesn't let you down. You'll know the characters, you'll know multiple timelines, and you'll want to see it through. Why is this planet being swallowed by sand? And who are all of these jerks struggling against each other? Why am I in the middle of it? And there might even be enemies within. Watch out! Or just rewind time and try again. You'd think you could just go back even further in time and take them out Terminator style, but it apparently doesn't work like that.
Brute force is always the best option, especially when you can rewind time and try again. But then you have to go through a bunch of cutscenes, so you may as well do it right the first time. Radiant Historia.
This is Aliens in the Attic, the video game based on the film, a side-scrolling platformer for the Nintendo DS. Very nice old-school synthesizer-style soundtrack in this one. And who builds rotating saws beneath the floorboards? That seems extremely impractical and like it would be a huge waste of energy. If you're old enough to remember the days of side-scrollers on the Nintendo Entertainment System or Sega Genesis or any of the old-school consoles, or if you just like to play those older games, surely you remember times when you'd get stuck on the first or second level of a game until you memorized certain attack patterns or places to jump, things like that. Aliens in the Attic is not a bad game, but it starts off very slow and very easy compared to side-scrollers back in the day. So aside from that, this game is actually made quite well. You choose between 3 different playable characters, each of which does something different. You hop and jump around the screen shooting enemies, throwing grenades, and find various household objects to upgrade your weapons to defeat the aliens in the attic. Hopefully they're not the kind of aliens that spew acid all over you when you shoot them. That would be a very different game. And for those of us who are spaceship side-scrolling or vertical-scrolling shooter fans, these end bosses remind me of something straight out of Ikaruga or Gigawing, except that they're a whole lot easier. As anybody with half a brain knows, children can withstand far more laser beams than spaceships. So if you can defeat Raiden 3 without breaking a sweat, you're going to wipe the floor with this game, but it's probably not aimed at you either. It's aimed at your kids. They've done a nice job with the controls in this game. You can play the standard old school style with the D-pad and the buttons, which is what I'm predominantly doing, or you can run around and then control where you're firing with the Nintendo DS stylus. If you noticed in that previous shot, the bottom screen has an area where you can guide your gunfire. It's practically impossible to run around and shoot with the stylus when I'm recording, and I tend to prefer gameplay with the buttons anyway, but for those of you who are good at using both the stylus and the D-pad, the firing system in this game can be very precise. When you need to reach higher locations, you turn into the little girl in the game, Hannah, because little girls can double jump. It's true, they defy the laws of physics. She jumps once, and if you push the button again, she exerts force into magic, which allows her to double jump. Then when you want to blow things up, you've got to turn back into one of the guys in the game. There's 5 different environments in the game, each with 5 levels, and it does get more challenging. What we're watching is gameplay from earlier in the game, but nowhere near as difficult as they used to be. So I would classify it as a side-scrolling platformer for casual gamers or for your kids who may not have grown up with the crushing difficulty of side-scrollers from years past. You can also find versions of this game for the PlayStation 2 and the Nintendo Wii. There was a time when just about every other game that came out was a side-scrolling platformer. These days, just about every other game is a first-person shooter, so it is nice to see a side-scrolling platformer. It doesn't really do anything wrong, so fans of side-scrollers looking for something new that they haven't played may want to check it out. On the other hand, you may just want to play Sonic the Hedgehog, Bionic Commando, Mega Man, or Contra for the 5,000th time. I leave it up to you. I don't tell you what to buy, unless it's Yar's Revenge, in which case I do tell you what to buy. Yar's Revenge. Which has nothing to do with this game except it has aliens. No, they're insects. Well, they're like space insects. Whatever, these kids should be able to call in the Zorlon cannon for support whenever they need it. Prehistoric flesh-eating animals, I choose you! Wait, these aren't Pokemon, they're dinosaurs! It's Fossil Fighters Champions, which is kind of like Pokemon, except you might actually learn something in Fossil Fighters, like how to mine rocks, how to clean fossils, and, most importantly, how to bring dangerous animals back from the grave to fight for your enjoyment. It's Fossil Fighters Champions, not Fossil Fighters Losers. You don't win by bringing back wimpy dinosaurs. You want the really big ones with sharp, pointy teeth and big tails with spikes on them. Oh, look at me. I brought back a trilobite. Yeah, please. Fossil Fighters Champions. Yes, it's almost as ridiculous as it sounds, except that it actually plays pretty well for a game in this genre. And hey, kids love dinosaurs. But don't mistake this for a silly, juvenile kids game. There's actually quite a bit of depth to the battles in Fossil Fighters. If you don't learn how to use your dinosaurs, you will lose. You assemble a crack fighting team of dinosaurs after you've successfully mined all of their various fossilized body parts. And then you clean the fossils using a little drill and hammer, and then you blow the dust out of the way by blowing into the Nintendo DS microphone, which works surprisingly well. The better job that you do cleaning, the better dinosaurs you will have. I'm not sure what the scientific reasoning behind that is, but that's the way the game works. The dinosaurs are held together by string theory and mayonnaise. You play as a generic anime kind of kid who has spiky hair. I named mine Dino Rad, because why wouldn't I? And you're playing for, I think, Jurassic Park or something, a free membership to Six Flags. I don't know. What's important is that you're fighting dinosaurs. It's a lot like Pokemon or Bakugan, except instead of throwing little cute furry creatures into battle, you're throwing giant dinosaurs. Fossil Fighters has a turn-based combat system, and you want to select the right dinosaurs for the battle. They're short range, medium range, long range. They have all kinds of different abilities and elemental attributes. You'll fight random people as you're collecting fossils, and you're playing through a cup for the honor of all the dinosaur kingdom. Fossil Fighters Champions is not a fast-paced game. It will require some time and patience as you spend a lot of time digging for fossils and then cleaning them. Eventually you collect fossils that you already have, so you clean them for a better score, and you add those points to something that you can use to upgrade your characters and dinosaurs. You're also collecting gems that you clean off and buy new cleaning tools. It's a neat game if you or your kids are into dinosaurs and this style of gameplay. Be forewarned that you will spend a lot of time cleaning fossils, so you probably should find this stuff interesting if you're going to play Fossil Fighters. This one is published by Nintendo. It works well on the Nintendo DS. You'll want to use both the buttons and the stylus to play the game. You can also battle your friends multiplayer with the Wireless DS Single Card Download Play and Wireless DS Multi-Card Play, 2 to 4 players. So what are you waiting for? Get out there and resurrect some dinosaurs. They're probably bored just laying in the ground all fossilized like that. Give them a purpose. Give them a reason to live again. Fighting for laughs. It's Fossil Fighters Champions on the Nintendo DS.
Hello, my name is Mark, and I'm a Peggle-holic. I first realized that I had a problem with Peggle when I couldn't stop playing it for my Xbox 360. The addictive gameplay simply made it too hard to quit. I tried to combat this problem by turning off my Xbox, but now with Peggle DualShot on the Nintendo DS, I'm simply screwed. There's no escaping the Peggle. It's like an addictive drug, except without any really nasty side effects, except for the yearning to play more Peggle. Peggle DualShot is perfectly suited for the Nintendo DS. You can play the game with your stylus, or you can use the directional pad or top buttons on the Nintendo DS. And when you play with the stylus, you can move the little cannon thing back and forth, and when you hold it in one spot for a moment, it zooms in, allowing you ultra precision when you're playing Peggle. I prefer to play with the D-pad, but the fact is, PopCap thought ahead. They gave you multiple ways to control the game, and that's awesome. I like it when game companies do that. I've previously reviewed Peggle for the Xbox 360. You can get it in the PopCap Arcade Volume 2 collection or download it from Xbox Live Arcade. Peggle DualShot gives you two versions of Peggle. You get straight up standard Peggle and Peggle Knights, which is like a whole nother version of Peggle with all new boards to play. Peggle Knights is pretty cool because all the characters are dreaming, and there's little storylines that go with each of them, like the unicorn is a superhero. And you get 2 times the Peggle with your Nintendo DS cartridge. It's like concentrated Peggle. Graphically, the game looks terrific. It's much higher contrast and blockier, chunkier pixels than you'd find on the high-definition 360 version. And the gameplay is identical, which is good. Why mess with the perfect game? Peggle's terrific. It's one of my favorite games now. The big difference between Peggle DualShot and Peggle on the 360 is the underground mode. The way it works is that in each game of Peggle, there's always a purple peg which gives you extra points. And when you get 25,000 points in a shot, you get an extra ball. So you're always trying to get the most points per shot. Well, when you hit this purple peg 4 times, it then turns yellow. And the 5th time you hit it, you then enter the underground mode. And you really want to get that because you're almost always ensured at least 1 extra ball, frequently 2 extra balls, in the underground mode. And that changes gameplay because it's somewhat easier to get an extra ball. I wouldn't say the whole game changes, it's not dramatically easier, but it's not that difficult to hit the purple peg 5 times in your game, and then walk away with a huge stack of underground gems and several extra balls. I mean, who doesn't like extra balls? Peggle has made the transition to the Nintendo DS without losing any of the fun of Peggle. The top screen typically shows you a picture of whatever character it is that you're playing. The bottom screen is where you have the action. The music and sound effects are familiar. They're the same music and sound that you have in the 360 version, except with more compression for the Nintendo DS. And there's several new unlockable levels, and Peggle Knights has an extra character with it as well. While I fight the fight against my addiction, I welcome Peggle consuming me. It's only a matter of time until PopCap, who intentionally designs fun, addictive games, comes out with a version of Peggle that plays on the inside of your eyelids while you sleep, giving new meaning to the term Peggle Knights. It's an excellent game, it's fun, it's catchy, it really is addictive, so watch out when you start playing Peggle. It is hard to stop. And it spreads. My wife, who doesn't even like video games, is addicted to Peggle. There simply is no escape, there's nowhere to run. The dog is even becoming addicted to Peggle.
From the publisher of Modern Warfare 2, Call of Duty Black Ops, Prototype, and River Raid, it's Squinkies Surprise Inside, which comes with 4 ultra-rare Squinkies.
What's squishy, squishy, squashy? Squinkies! Squinkies, squinkies, squinkies! Squishy, squishy, splashy fun. A tiny surprise in everyone. Squinkies, squinkies, squinkies! A tiny world, each and every one. You can collect them all for Squinkies fun. Squinkies! Choose a princess.
I thought someone said Slinkies. What are these things?
Yay! Hi! My Squinkies friends have gotten lost outside and are hiding in their bubbles. Can you please help me free them? The Squinkies will want to play a game with us before coming out of their bubbles. The games are really fun, and we could earn magic coins for the Gumball Playhouse.
You were losing me right up until you said Gumball Playhouse. Now I'm in it to win it. Squinkies, hiding in their bubbles from the radioactive air outside. This is a game aimed at a younger audience who likes to collect Squinkies, which are like a combination of Super Balls mixed with Snorks. Little squishy, squashable monsters that are a choking hazard for anyone younger than 3. So do not buy this game for your 1-year-old. However, do buy this game for your 17-year-old in high school. They'll love it. Because they can brag to their friends about all of the Squinkies that they've collected. The gameplay is pretty straightforward. You wander about aimlessly and run into balls that you then open and try to collect Squinkies by playing silly games to make them come out of their ball. Naturally. And one thing it could use is an automatic Facebook updater. I'm sure that all of your friends in high school would like to know which Squinkies you've collected. That's just common sense. I know I would want that. And Twitter.
New Squinkies found! Guide the princess to the yummy food.
Alright, hold on. I just got a message. Apparently this game is aimed at an audience younger than high school, even. Really? It just seems like it would be such a teenage thing. I mean, you can collect over 250 squishy, squashy Squinkies and discover enchanted lands in search of lost Squinkies. They've lost themselves, and you are there to guide them as their moral compass.
La la la! New Squinkies found! You win! It's a new Squinkies!
Oh, so that's where babies come from. It's always been a mystery to me. Facebook update. I just found a human baby trapped inside a plastic bubble inside the Magic Donut Land. FBI, open up. Maybe that's why they don't have a Facebook updater on this game. Squinkies' surprise inside is really not that surprising. In fact, it's quite predictable as you collect these Squinkies and then add them to your collection inside the game. You also find or unlock these magic coins, which you use to place inside the magic gumball machine and get new Squinkies that way.
Get the new Squinkies!
Think of it as value shopping for Squinkies for your kids, because presumably Squinkies cost money, and if you want to collect 250 Squinkies in real life, you have to buy them, individually? Do they come in a pack? I have no idea. I don't care either. But in the game, you unlock the Squinkies for one low price, the price of the game itself. In fact, it even comes with 4 ultra rare Squinkies, and 1 secret one. How exciting! What could it be? What's the secret Squinky? It's a unicorn! I love unicorns. They make the best burgers. I mean, they're great chefs, right? That's what I meant. And it's pink. Squinkies! They are literally made out of the same stuff that Super Balls are made from. But they don't bounce predictably because they're, animal-shaped.
The Squinkies got away!
It's Dragon Quest Monsters Joker 2. That's a long title for a long game. This is a massive monster scouting RPG adventure from Square Enix and Nintendo, where you can collect or synthesize about 300 different weird-ass looking monsters. After you crush them without mercy, teach them a lesson, and then kindly ask them to join your party. It's called Scouting, and your spiky-haired guy, who I named El Camino, is a monster scout who stows away on an airship that crash lands on an island filled with monsters. I'm not that familiar with Dragon Quest, but this reminds me of Pokemon meets the Shin Megami Tensei series. Kind of an odd mixture if you're familiar with both of those. You fight monsters, and then after you've beaten them down a bit, you scout them and add them to your party, creating teams of monsters that fight for you. And after you level them up to level 10, you can then combine them to form new, more powerful monsters. Which, of course, reminds me of Demon Fusion in Persona. Except, this game is a lot less weird, and not quite as interesting. It's a very straightforward RPG-style adventure with turn-based combat that works extremely well on the Nintendo DS split-screen display. You can set your monsters on autopilot by changing their tactics, or give them individual commands. And as you play through the game and level your monsters up and synthesize new ones, they'll learn all kinds of new magic spells, which are a lot of fun to use in combat. While I did not find the storyline terribly exciting, I enjoyed the sense of humor in the game, and found it to be a predictable adventure-style game with a lot of grinding. If you enjoy collecting monsters, leveling them up, and merging them together to create more powerful ones with different magic spells, and then fighting with them, then you'll probably enjoy this game a lot. And after you've formed a suitable team of monsters, you can battle other human beings using a local wireless connection or by connecting to the Nintendo Wi-Fi connection for the Wi-Fi World Tournament. Here's a look at monster synthesis after you collect monsters by scouting them. They're added to your inventory on the crashed airship, where you use this fancy computer-like thing to combine them if they're at the appropriate level and then choose new skills. For the creative types, one of the fun features in this game is naming all of your monsters, because after a while you'll have a whole bunch of strangely named bizarre creatures in your possession that you can mix and match in battle. Obviously, you'll want some stronger ones, more powerful magic users, and healers. During the adventure portion of the game, you run around an open world environment, where you get your map on the bottom screen. As you run into monsters, you fight them. This is where you level your team up, or scout the monsters and add them to your collection. It's nice to see Nintendo still publishing games for the standard Nintendo DS, since a lot of people have them, like this and Kirby Mass Attack, which I'm also reviewing. Like a lot of these games, it gets old hearing the same music over and over again, but that kind of comes with the genre. With Dragon Quest Monsters Joker 2 on the DS, you get a ton of gameplay, a few giggles, and the chance to create a world-famous team of battling monsters under your control. Maybe you'll even learn the mystery behind his spiky hair. After all of these battles, it never falls flat. Another cool feature to quickly mention is that when you go into battle, you have a first and second line of monsters. If your first line is wiped out, bring out the reserves to finish the enemy off with style. It's Dragon Quest Monsters Joker 2. This is the happiest music I've ever heard. I remember seeing this movie years ago, probably a 70s or 80s film about a computer that wrote the best song on Earth.
Oh yeah!
And like everybody was happy and dancing, and it was like the greatest, happiest song ever. And maybe that computer wrote the Mario Kart music. I don't know how these Nintendo people managed to write music that's happy and upbeat, yet not annoying beyond comprehension. Maybe the computer did it. Mario Kart DS was released in 2005 and remains one of the best-selling Nintendo DS games ever. As I review this in 2009, to me it looks like the precursor to Mario Kart Wii. It's a very good game, but for handheld gaming, Mario Kart Super Circuit on the Game Boy Advance is better. Insert shouting and screaming and then silent comprehension. Think about it. You don't have to take my word for it. You can buy Super Circuit and Mario Kart DS that both play on your DS for about 20 or 30 bucks now combined. Maybe a bit more, but they're worth it. They're both fun games and totally different in some ways. The one thing the DS does give you that Game Boy Advance did not is that second screen where you get a top-down perspective on the race. You can actually just drive by watching the bottom screen. It's very handy for finding out who's behind you. Anyway, I'm not going to spend the whole review comparing the two of them. I've previously reviewed Mario Kart Super Circuit on the Game Boy Advance. I love it. It's a terrific game. Mario Kart DS and its big brother Mario Kart Wii are made for multiplayer. They're really fun games to pick up and play, challenge other players. They're rowdy, wild, crash and bang, arcade-style driving games. Some of the earlier installments in the series, like Super Mario Kart on the Super Nintendo and Super Circuit on the Game Boy Advance, penalized you for hitting other players. You'd lose coins. I'm not as familiar with Mario Kart 64 yet. I'll get there eventually. But with Mario Kart DS and Mario Kart Wii, they made the series more accessible for everybody. And while playing the tracks over and over again and memorizing them does help, if you're only moderately good or you're playing a whole bunch of your friends over those DS connection things, it's like the playing field is relatively equal. Because if you're near the back of the pack, you'll pick up that bullet or something that'll throw you towards the front of the pack of carts, or if you're in first place, somebody will blow you up with the flying shell and send you back into last place. They're cool games to just dive in and play. If you really want to get sucked into the actual driving, I find the older ones are better. Most of what I would probably say about this game I covered in my Mario Kart Wii review, except here you get it on a smaller Mario Kart DS that you can take with you. This is easily one of the best DS games out there, no question. It's well made, it sounds great, the controls are easy to use. It doesn't needlessly shove the DS stylus control down your throat, and it actually uses both screens effectively. You also get more than 30 tracks, including a number of the awesome classic ones. The tracks started getting larger and more crazy as the series progressed. Mario Kart DS gives you a nice selection of old and new ones. No doubt many of you watching this already have Mario Kart DS, in which case I would recommend check out Mario Kart Super Circuit on the Game Boy Advance. See if you like the changes between the two. If you have a DS that plays Game Boy Advance karts, it should plug right in and play on the top screen. Many of the tracks in this game are in Mario Kart Wii, so if you're familiar with that game, which I play a lot, I love Mario Kart Wii. I mean, they're all great games. It's like splitting hairs talking about which one is better than the other one. It's like arguing over whether a lager is better than a pilsner. You should just have both of them. Leave no beer behind. Also, for those of us who are Mario Kart Wii fans, there's a lot of the same tracks in this game, but they're like different versions of the same track. It's like playing the same track again for the 1000th time the first time. See, that's where some front-mounted machine guns would have worked really well. For those interested, this does have wireless DS single-card download play and wireless DS multi-card play. It does not do interspecies wireless DS to non-wireless Game Boy Advance play, however. That would be like a lager mating with a porter. You know, depending on how you spell that, that actually is plausible. You see, that stupid shell ruins so many races. You should be able to beat the crap out of whoever used that on you after each race. Oh, well, if you're playing next to your friend, you can. That's the game, Mario Kart DS. Thanks to my buddy Dan for loaning me the game cartridge for a while. And if you've never played any of the Mario Kart games, it's never too late to start. One of the most challenging things about producing classic game room reviews is rolling straight out of the Masters of the Universe Game Boy Advance review into Devil Survivor 2. Like, I couldn't pick two more different games to review back to back, and I'm still in the He-Man mindset. I have the power to summon demons with my cell phone! See? This is what you can expect. And it's Friday, which doesn't help. But hey, at least this will keep the review different from my review of Devil Survivor 1, because the fact is these games are nearly identical. I mean, they are and they aren't, but they literally play the same. This is part of the awesome Shin Megami Tensei series. It's on the Nintendo DS, published by the always entertaining Atlus. And your group of teenagers is immediately thrown into a disaster when Japan is hit with a series of earthquakes or something, but then you find out it's more than that. Demons are appearing everywhere, and it may even be global. Of course, you can't really go anywhere, you're kind of confined, sound familiar, and you team up with this super secret society of government officials called GIPs, who are fighting the demons and have like old school 1970s Godzilla spacesuit outfits or something. And it kind of looks like they live in a clock. I have the hours! Because I live in a clock! There's hours everywhere, get it? Stupid demons. Why are the demons doing this? Again, in like every other Shin Megami Tensei game. Devil Survivor 2 is definitely aimed at a very specific crowd, those of you who enjoyed Devil Survivor 1. It's a great turn-based strategy game, and that's what they get right here, the awesome turn-based strategy gameplay with a bizarre enigmatic plot. The secret to success with Devil Survivor and Devil Survivor 2 is building a powerful team of demons that you win at auction or fuse together to create new demons that inherit traits from the old demons. So you want to create a really good team. And one of the most important things is depth. You don't want just 2 or 3 powerful demons, you need a whole bunch of them. Now you'll always have a few that are more powerful than others, but if they get killed off in battle, you can summon additional demons from your reserve supply. I have a collection of demons! Be my friend! Actually, by being better friends with your teammates, you increase your fate level or something. Your strength in combat, so your choices during conversations do make a difference. And as far as I can tell, there's no direct relation between Devil Survivor 1 and Devil Survivor 2, in the storyline sense at least. It's like you're playing through the same game again, except with subtle differences, and they have added some new demon classes and slight differences in the combat and auction systems. I'm not sure if this is better than the original, it's more of the same, but when it comes to these Shin Megami Tensei games, fans like me want more of the same. I mean, you don't want to play a Shin Megami Tensei game only to find out it's like Poke Park 3. I've fused Pikachu with a ham sandwich! It's delicious. And worthless at fighting demons from what I understand. If you enjoyed the original Devil Survivor on the Nintendo DS, and want to basically play a newer version of the game, I highly recommend this. If you enjoy other turn-based tactical strategy games like Vandal Hearts, or Final Fantasy Tactics, or Front Mission, then I will highly recommend this game. It's a kick-ass series, and Atlas always does a nice job putting these out with great artwork and fun, entertaining dialogue. And it's a big game, too, with multiple endings, so lots of replay value, and if you enjoyed the Persona games, you'll also want to give this one a look. Devil Survivor 2. Enough reviewing, more playing. I have the Nintendo DS with Devil Survivor 2 loaded in it, ready to go. Whoa. Hey. What do you do when you've run out of cute animals to base video game characters off of? You turn to fungus. Docomodake, who is putting the fun into fungi. This is a really cool name. People should name their kids this. The game is Boing Docomodake DS for the Nintendo DS. Let's take a look at it.
Boing, Docomodake DS, and listen to the music. I haven't heard music this upbeat since the last Typo Negative album. And I have to admit, I actually like the music in this game. Very high production value and quite catchy. So do you know what Docomodake actually is? I thought this guy was too polished to just have come out of the blue like this. And did a bit of research. Docomodake is the mascot of the Japanese mobile phone company NTT Docomo. So he's the equivalent of the 7-Up Spot or Ronald McDonald, both of whom had their own video games. As does Docomodake. If this was an American game, it would be way more in your face. He would be solving puzzles using his excellent phone service as provided by NTT Docomo. I couldn't have solved this puzzle without it. He'd have whipped out his cell phone and there'd have been a whole animation sequence where it goes into space and gets relayed through the amazing satellite service and comes back down to him with the solution. And then, like, girls would have rained on him and stuff, and that's how the Americans would have done it. Now, the Japanese just went and made a fun game out of the whole thing, because Docomodake is excellent if you like puzzle games. It's like a puzzle game mixed with an old-school platformer, like Super Mario Brothers or something. The animation and gameplay are very well done. It's of a very high quality. And I was pleasantly surprised when I started getting sucked into the gameplay. It starts off simple and then gets much more complicated. It's a lot like that game Mechanic Master for the Nintendo DS I reviewed a few weeks ago. The gameplay is pretty unique. It's tough to explain, so hopefully you can pick most of this up by watching it on screen. But the whole premise of the game is Docomodake's family has somehow gone missing, probably because they all lost service because they were using a different phone company, and he has to go out and find them using an NTT Docomo GPS device powered by NTT Docomo satellites. I made that up, but that's what I'm presuming. You go through the numerous environments in the game. Each environment has 8 different levels. You start at the beginning and have to find your way to the end using strategy and planning to do so, and also collecting the coins and treasure, opening the treasure boxes along the way to find more coins and more minis. What are minis? Minis are like the Swiss Army knife of cute Japanese cartoon characters, sub-mascots for mobile phone companies. You can use them for pretty much anything, and they live within Docomodake, and when you tap in with the stylus, they come out. You move them around the screen using your stylus. You can move them wherever you can get them to. You can circle a whole bunch of them and move them around at once. You can insert them into the little yellow squares at times and create walkways. You can stack them on top of each other and make ladders that Docomodake can climb. You can tap them twice and turn them into little balls that you can then throw at the enemies. You can fill jars with them and then open doors, set them on buttons to open passageways or doors. The more minis that you remove from Docomodake reduces his size so that he can get into smaller environments, but you need a larger Docomodake if you're going to push blocks out of the way. And, it really makes for entertaining gameplay. This game is totally worth checking out if you like puzzle games and bright, friendly Japanese side-scrollers. I found the controls to be effective, but they're somewhat awkward at the same time. You control Docomodake with the D-pad, or the buttons, if you're left or right-handed, and then you tap him and move the minis around the screen using the stylus. I find that many of these games on the DS where you have to use both the D-pad and the stylus for precision movements to be sometimes a bit challenging, but really it just takes time to get used to. You're given as much time as you need to finish each of the levels, and you can restart a level if you find yourself stuck in part of the level and you've left all of your minis somewhere else and can't get out of it. And although there's not a timer counting down on screen, you will earn a better grade or rating if you get through each level faster. Now you can also replay levels after you've already gone through them and mastered them, providing some replay value. With the coins that you collect, you can unlock some images and whatnot. It's a pretty neat game and definitely one that would be appropriate for kids of all ages and still thoroughly entertaining for adults. So nice job, Japanese. Maybe this is just the first stage of the invasion by NTT Docomo into the American market. I don't know. It doesn't feel like it, though. This feels like this character was made for the game. For all I know, everybody else in the world already hates him. But you know what? I kind of like Docomodake, and I don't even like mushrooms. Like, if someone orders a pizza with mushrooms, I'll just throw it back at them. But Docomodake, I could hang on to this guy.